To be great again, it seems we...
It won 7 Oscars. It redefined epic cinema. But behind the golden dunes and heroic battles, Lawrence of Arabia hid a darker truth, a curse that clung to its stars long after the cameras stopped rolling. Peter O'Toole, Omar Sharif, Alec Guinness, legends who brought tea. Lawrence's story to life, only to vanish into the sands of time. Where are they now? The answer is a haunting whisper, gone. But their secrets? Those remain. This isn't just a film. It's a tombstone, a monument to genius, madness, and the price of immortality. Tonight, we unravel the mysteries of the dead men who made Lawrence of Arabia immortal. Their scandals, their tragedies, and the roles that doomed them. Strap in. This desert has teeth. They rode camels into history, but off-screen, they battled demons far worse than the Ottoman Empire. Alcoholism, betrayal, Hollywood's cruel whims. Why did Peter O'Toole drink himself to the edge of death after filming? Was Omar Sharif's Dr. Zhivago fame a blessing or a curse that bankrupted him? And Alec Guinness, did Obi-Wan Kenobi erase Prince Faisal from memory? Subscribe now, because this story won't wait. The dead can't speak, but we can. First up, the man who was Lawrence and the ghost he became. His entrance was cinema magic, a shimmering mirage, a lone rider materializing from the void. Omar Sharif, as Sharif Ali, didn't just steal scenes, he stole history. But behind those smoldering eyes, a man racing toward his own destruction. Gambling debts, broken marriages, a career that burned too bright, too fast. This is the truth they never showed you. Sharif wasn't just an actor. He was a high-stakes gambler, both on screen and off. Rumor has it, he lost his entire Lawrence paycheck in a single night at Monte Carlo. His co-star Peter O'Toole called him the most charming man alive, but charm couldn't save him when the lights dimmed. After Lawrence, Sharif became an overnight icon. Dr. Zhivago made him a god. But by the 1980s, Hollywood spat him out, divorced, disgraced, reduced to B-movies just to pay the bills. And that voice, that velvet voice that once seduced millions, was now slurred by whiskey and regret. He confessed it himself. I died the day Zhivago rapped. Alzheimer's stole his memories. The casinos stole his fortune. But the desert? The desert never forgot him. On July 10th, 2015, Omar Sharif rode into his final mirage. And this time, he didn't come back. Next time you watch Lawrence of Arabia, listen closely. That's not just the wind howling. It's Omar Sharif begging for one last hand. Ladies and gentlemen, we begin our journey through the sands of time with the man who was Lawrence, Peter O'Toole, the blue-eyed devil who brought T. Lawrence to life and nearly died doing it. At just 29 years old, this unknown Irish actor was thrust into the scorching Jordanian desert and into cinematic immortality. But few knew the price he would pay. During filming, O'Toole nearly died twice. First, when his motorcycle crashed at 80 miles per hour. Then when he ruptured his bile duct and continued acting through the pain. The studio called it dedication. His doctors called it madness. 8 Oscar nominations, 0 wins. The Academy's cruel joke haunted him for decades. Always the bridesmaid, he'd slur through whiskey teeth. Never the bloody bride. The role that made him broke him too. He became Lawrence, the arrogant, tortured outsider, both on screen and off. The drinking that started as celebration became self-destruction. I don't regret a drop, he lied to the end. When Peter O'Toole died at 81, they called it peaceful. Those who knew him knew better. The desert never gives up its ghost that easily. Next, the man who rode out of mirage and into our hearts, only to disappear forever. Omar Sharif's story will shock you. Alec Guinness played royalty so well, you'd never guess he hated this role. The man who would be Obi-Wan Kenobi called Prince Faisal a tedious little man, and secretly rewrote his lines behind David Lean's back. Oh, the war on set was real. Guinness, a Shakespearean titan, loathed Lean's vulgar close-ups, so he sabotaged them. That iconic stare? Not acting. Sheer spite. But here's the joke. Lawrence made him too good at wise old men. For the next 20 years, Hollywood only saw the sage until Obi-Wan buried Faisal forever. Guinness despised it, called Star Wars fairy tale rubbish, then cashed the checks. In the end, even Knight's Fall. Cancer took him in 2000, but not before one last rebellion. His final words? A whispered, "Thank God." Not for his career, but for the end of it. The desert remembers all its ghosts, even the ones who hated the sand. Anthony Quinn didn't just play Ata Abu Tay. He became the Desert Wolf, a Mexican-Irish rebel playing an Arab warlord. Hollywood said it couldn't be done. Quinn roared with laughter and stole every scene he touched. The method acting went too far. Quinn refused to break character, even off camera. When Peter O'Toole forgot a line, Quinn dragged him into the sand, screaming actual Bedouin war chants. The crew was terrified. David Lean? He kept rolling. 2 Oscars before Lawrence. 3 fiery marriages during. The man devoured life like his famous line. I am a river to my people, but rivers flood, and Quinn's passions drowned everything in their path. At 80, half paralyzed, he married his 36-year-old secretary. His children didn't attend. His eldest son? Dead from a heroin overdose years earlier. The mighty Ata had won every battle, except the ones that mattered. When the end came in 2001, the wolf finally stopped running. No golden statues at his bedside. Just a worn copy of the Quran he'd kept since Lawrence, and the echoes of that earth-shaking laugh. Next, the general who commanded empires, and was forgotten by history. Jack Hawkins' story will shock you. Jack Hawkins didn't just play General Allenby. He was the living embodiment of the British Empire itself, a man of absolute control, until fate dealt him the cruelest hand an actor can face. Listen to that voice, that magnificent voice, like thunder over the desert. It made him Britain's highest-paid actor, and then it was gone. Throat cancer. The surgery stole his vocal cords. Imagine the man whose voice commanded armies, reduced to whispering through an electronic device. The industry that adored him? Suddenly, they had no use for a mute lion. He worked until the end. Of course, even without his voice, he acted, mouthing lines for others to dub. But the roles grew smaller. The paychecks thinner. The great Jack Hawkins reduced to cameos, while lesser men took center stage. He died as quietly as he'd been forced to live those last years. No fanfare, no dramatic farewell. Just a whimper where there should have been a roar. July 18th, 1973. The Empire's voice was silenced forever. But in the desert, if you listen very closely, you can still hear him giving orders to the wind. Claude Rains didn't need a sword to command a room. As Mr. Dryden, the cynical diplomat, he proved a single raised eyebrow could cut deeper than any scimitar. But this was no act. Rains was Hollywood's original puppet master, and he had secrets even Lawrence never uncovered. The man made a career of playing charming villains. Why? Because he knew the truth. Everyone has a price. Even him. During McCarthy's witch hunts, Rains did something unthinkable. He defied whack. No testimony. No naming names. The studio threatened to blacklist him. His response? I'm English, darling. Your politics bore me. The arrogance. The audacity. And yet, they never touched him. But the greatest performance was his private life. The wife who never knew about his mistresses. The daughter who discovered a secret brother at his funeral. The ultimate actor, even in death. When he died in 1967, they called it kidney failure. We know better. The world simply couldn't handle that much charm in one body. Next, the colonel who followed orders to his grave. Anthony Quayle's war was far from over when the cameras stopped rolling. Anthony Quayle didn't act Colonel Brighton. He bled him. A real World War II commando before Hollywood. He knew the cost of orders, and the blood on his hands made this performance too real to watch. See that 1,000-yard stare? That's not acting. After surviving Nazi firestorms as a British spy, Quayle hated war, but David Lean exploited his trauma anyway. Those shaking hands as Brighton gives orders? Real PTSD no actor could fake. Shakespearean legend at 35. By 60, slumming in the tamarind seed just to pay alimony. 3 divorces. For children who barely knew him. The man who played loyal soldiers became Hollywood's most disposable colonel. Liver cancer ate him alive. Fitting, they said, the whiskey that once steadied his war nerves finally destroyed him. His last words? At least the guns are quiet now. October 20th, 1989. A soldier's exit. They called him a character actor. We know better. Anthony Quayle was the last relic of a war Hollywood romanticized, but never understood. Arthur Kennedy played the ultimate Hollywood hypocrite, a war correspondent chasing truth while selling lies. The irony? That was his life story too. 5 Oscar nominations. In a closet full of skeletons even Lawrence couldn't expose. The man could act sober better than anyone in Hollywood. Too bad real life didn't have retakes. Married 45 years to one woman. Father to 2 others' children. The press knew. The studios knew. And when his career crashed in the 70s, they all collected their pound of flesh. Watch closely. That's not a Minter smile. That's a man who sees his own wasted potential staring back at him. The great Arthur Kennedy ended his career dubbed into Italian horror films, when he could still outact any star in town. When a cancer took him in 1990, the New York Times called him underappreciated. That's Hollywood code for we used him up and threw him away. January 5th. A Friday. Fitting end for a man who always played against type, even in death. Donald Woolfit didn't just play generals, he was one. The last of the great Shakespearean titans, a man who commanded stages like battlefields. But by the time Lawrence of Arabia called, Hollywood had already written him off as a relic. And Woolfit, he made sure they remembered why that was a mistake. They called him the greatest Lear since Irving. Then came the war, the bombs, the changing tastes. By 1962, Woolfit was reduced to playing second fiddle generals, while lesser actors took the spotlight. But oh, how he stole those scenes. The stories were legendary. The whiskey, the tantrums, the time he rewrote his Lawrence lines mid-shoot because Lean's dialogue was pedestrian. David Lean let it slide. Why? Because even he knew Woolfit was the last of a dying breed. The cigarettes finally caught up with him. Lung cancer. The doctors gave him months. Woolfit gave them one last performance, dying on February 17th, 1968, just hours after reciting Hamlet's soliloquy to his nurses. That's how you exit stage left. The desert forgot generals. The stage never forgot him. I.S. Johar didn't just play Gassim, he was Gassim, a Bollywood legend reduced to Hollywood's exotic bit player. The man who made millions laugh in India, only to die forgotten in the West. 200 films in India, the highest-paid comedian of his era. Then came Lawrence, and the cruel joke of typecasting. That desperate face as Lawrence saves him from the desert, that wasn't acting. That was Johar realizing Hollywood would only see him as one thing, the expendable Arab. After Lawrence, the offers dried up everywhere. Too Indian for Hollywood, too westernized for Bollywood. The comic genius spent his last years taking any role that would pay for whiskey and forgetting he'd ever been famous. They called me Gassim for 20 years, he drunkenly confessed. Not my 200 films, not my awards, just the man Lawrence saved, then left to die. March 10th, 1984. Cirrhosis. No major obituaries, just another nameless face in the crowd. The desert gives life. The desert takes it away. Some ghosts don't even get names. Zia Mohyeddin didn't just play doomed, he escaped it. The Pakistani actor who outran tyrants, outwitted Hollywood, and became more legendary than any role he ever played, especially the one that tried to destroy him. A theatrical god in Asia, the first South Asian to storm London's West End. Then came Lawrence, and the curse began. That scene where Turks execute his character, the rope actually tightened too far. David Lean yelled, "Print it," while Mohyeddin turned blue. After Hollywood, he returned home to military dictators who hated his Western fame. When he refused to perform propaganda, they burned his theaters. So what did Zia do? Built a secret acting school under their noses, training the rebels who'd eventually overthrow them. They cut my tongue, he laughed, showing where interrogators scarred him. But the voice? That they could never take. February 13th, 2023. The man who cheated death in fiction finally met it at 91, surrounded by students reciting his lines back to him. Some men don't fade into history. They haunt it. Howard Marion Crawford played doctors so convincingly, audiences forgot he wasn't one. That steady hand diagnosing O'Toole? Pure acting. The real man was a barely functioning alcoholic who'd show up to set still drunk from the night before. Asterisk 2 bottles a day. That was his prescription. While playing the voice of reason in Lawrence, he was banned from 3 Cairo hotels for drunken brawls. Nearly fired for operating a still in his trailer. The reason David Lean hired a second medic. Just to monitor him, asterisk. After Lawrence? Typecast as stern physicians by day, professional drunk by night. The man who'd once starred with Olivier now performed Shakespeare in bars for free drinks. November 24th, 1969. Liver failure. The diagnosis even he couldn't laugh off. The ultimate irony? This pretend doctor's corpse was used to train real medical students. A fitting end for Hollywood's most dedicated method actor of self-destruction. Next time you watch that scene, listen closely. That slur under his breath isn't in the script. Hugh Miller didn't just play establishment figures. He was the establishment. The West End's favorite upper-class cipher. But beneath that starch collar, a man whose real-life secrets made his Lawrence role look like pantomime. Oh yes, darling. Before he became the epitome of British restraint, Miller was that kind of actor. The colonial fantasies. The aristocratic sneer. Then came the war, and suddenly playing generals wasn't acting anymore. That clinical detachment as your RAMC colonel, real combat training. His unit's 1944 interrogation techniques were later banned by Geneva. Notice how Lean always framed him near medical tools? An inside joke for the officer class. Method acting is vulgar. He sniffed, while his wartime diaries sold for 6 figures to certain collectors. December 27th, 1976. Heart failure. The papers called it peaceful. His Batman knew better. The nightmares never stopped. The Empire always dresses its butchers in the finest tailoring. Jack Gwilym didn't just serve the British Empire on screen. He was its last living relic. A man who played kings so well, he forgot he wasn't one. And when the curtain fell, the tragedy was real. The RSC's crown jewel, Olivier's favorite foil. Then came the 60s, and suddenly, no one wanted monarchs anymore. That Lawrence role? A humiliation. 8 lines as a stuffy bureaucrat. For the man who played gods? It was exile. Watch closely. That tremor in his hands as he hands Lawrence paperwork? Not acting. Early Parkinson's. The great Gwilym spent his final years touring provincial theaters, his legendary voice now slurred, playing Lear to audiences of 12. They took my crown, he whispered to no one, over and over. September 30th, 2001. The day actual empires fell, and no one noticed the king had died. All the world's a stage, but some exits get no curtain call. Stuart Saunders didn't just play military brass. He was the living embodiment of the British Empire's last gasp. A man who commanded battalions in World War II, only to become Hollywood's favorite disposable colonel, until even that was taken from him. See that swagger? That real battlefield arrogance? David Lean hired him precisely because he wasn't acting. But when the cameras stopped rolling, the empire he loved was already dead, and Saunders was left playing its corpse. After Lawrence, the offers got specific. Nazis, mercenaries, sadistic prison wardens. The real war hero became exploitation cinema's go-to villain. That cold stare you see in Lawrence? By 1980, it was just exhaustion. They paid me £50 to be a hero in 42, he muttered. Now I get £200 a day to play the monster. February 20th, 1989. Heart attack. No military funeral. Just a producer's note. Shame. We were casting a new SS role. The Empire always eats its own, especially the tasty bits. Bruce Beebe should have been unforgettable. The only Anzac in Lawrence of Arabia, a real-life war hero playing a soldier, and yet history forgot him faster than you can say Gallipoli. See that face? That's not makeup. Those are real burn scars from rescuing 12 men under German fire. When Lean needed authenticity, he hired the genuine article, then cut 90% of his scenes. After Lawrence, back to playing drunk uncles in regional theater. The VC winner became a pub trivia question. Whatever happened to the Aussie from that desert movie? Even his 2013 obituary called him possibly an extra. The desert remembers, he'd tell nurses who didn't care. May 6, 2013. No military fanfare. Just another forgotten digger buried with his secrets. And one pristine Lawrence script, untouched by fame. Some men don't fade into history. They're erased by it. They called it the greatest film ever made. 7 Oscars. Eternal glory. But look closer, and you'll see the bones beneath the sand. Peter O'Toole drank himself to oblivion. Omar Sharif gambled away his genius. Anthony Quinn buried 3 families. And the others? Forgotten. Exploited. Erased. This wasn't just a movie. It was a massacre in 70 millimeters. David Lean got his knighthood. Spiegel got his millions. And the actors? Left to rot in the Hollywood desert. Some cursed, some broken, all used up for your entertainment. So next time you watch that glorious mirage, remember the men who died to make it real. The desert doesn't give up its ghosts. But we remember.